Are you tired of data bottlenecks and missed opportunities in your organization? Are you struggling to bridge the gap between data and product success? And you want to revolutionize your business with data products that drive growth and innovation and move your career forward? Well, today you're in luck because you'll meet Darren Wood, the head of data product strategy at ITV. I think he's a data powerhouse, revolutionizing the way to create and deliver value. So join me, Ross Webb, on this episode of Data Team Success, brought to you in partnership with Amplitude, the world's best product analytics software, in my experience, for game-changing insights to bridge the gap between data and product success. And coming up in this episode, we talk about the importance of data accessibility and the future of data and product management, and challenges in implementing and managing data products. Now, with the data landscape evolving rapidly, we're in for an exciting discussion on its future. So Darren, what are your perceptions of where data is now? Specifically with the move of putting the customer at the center and the user at the center.
Yeah, for sure. I think kind of every industry's at the moment. You had kind of the engineers who had their moment when Agile came in and that whole transformation product with Marty Kagan. Jeff Gothelf was kind of in between the design and product. And I think this is kind of data's moment right now where really focusing on how data is done within a business is really, really important. Data's gone through lots of different things. Data warehouses, data lakes, data mesh is kind of the next one of those. But I really think this is the point of change for data. Really, it's about, instead of having a central team, which kind of you will have gone to with something that you want. It might be a dashboard, a particular data source, something like that. And it was almost like an action that you give to a central team, and you got a request back. And then if you wanted anything else doing to that thing, if it's a dashboard, you'd have to go back in, make another request, and then it'd come back out. Very, very kind of slow process. And the product manager or whoever it was who requested the dashboard is left with a lot of the time something that they can't use because the person giving it to them is exceptionally technical and really good at using the tools. And the product manager sat on the other side, as I have, where I'm like, hang on a minute, I can't use this thing. Now I have to make another 2-week request to get this thing back, and I need to make an important decision. And that's kind of really, really changing, where we're trying to decentralize. So data should be looked after, owned and managed by the teams that want to use those data sources. And that's kind of a big part of the data mesh. So instead of having this centralized team, you'll still have experts, but they'll be in the representative domains. So for example, in our kind of situation, we have product domain, marketing domain, commercial domain, and you've got to try and set up those domains as the kind of important in your business based on use cases and things like that. But yeah, you've got to put the business areas really at the heart of it and understand what they want. So instead of a request coming in, maybe it's a ticket or something like that, you've really got to have that conversation. And we're talking about, which I'll dig into later, things like prototyping, iteration, lean testing, all those kind of things that you'd normally do in a product world with an end consumer, you can do internally with your customers that you've got, because we're all in the customer business now.
Darren, are you seeing a rise in the data product manager role? And what are the principles that data sources should comprise of to be really utilized fully?
Yeah, for sure. In our particular situation, like I was brought in because of my product background, and a lot of the other people in my position have all come from product backgrounds. And it's really key to kind of have that thinking where you're putting customers at the heart of it. And you're going through kind of all the processes that you would as a product manager. So you're discovering what the use cases are, what people want out of it, you're defining it, you're developing it, and then you're delivering it. And we're actually building out data products. So you've probably seen a lot about them, and there's kind of lots of confusion in terms of what a data product is, but essentially it's kind of a source of data. And there's kind of a lot of principles people would kind of preach into the converted on this podcast, but it has to be easy to use, easy to understand. It has to be unique. It has to be scalable. It has to create customer value. It's got to have objective quality in there. So usually some quality rating about what this data source is. an agreed SLA. So if you're connecting it to a data source, you could say every 24 hours. Obviously, everyone wants real-time data. But usually you don't need it because you're not making imminent decisions. So what kind of process is that? But those are the real key parts of a data product. And then underneath that, there's a load of different technology out there now that allows you to do those things. But really high level, that's what they are. And what you're trying to do is build a number of data products. That means that if you're connecting to, it might be an external product, or it might be a tool that consumers are using on the end. A lot of the time, data managers kind of do one-off integrations, which you've seen, and then when you want to change provider, it's a real pain to try and do. Where if you've got these data products in the middle, they've been owned, loved, managed. They've already gone through governance and legal. So when you come to using, whether it's data science, external or internal products, those things are already to connect with it, which is very different from the world that we've kind of been in the last few years, where you maybe get a tool, or as now we're moving to AI, and a data scientist goes to use a data source, and that data source hasn't been through legal, it hasn't been through governance, no one knows the quality of the data, no one's looked after it for many years. And that's kind of an issue that we're seeing across the board, where businesses have run into AI because it's the hot topic, but they're having real problems trying to get value out of it. And they've kind of sold the business to say, look, we need to spend this money on AI, but really you need to look after your data first, build these data products, ensure there's a governance and legal framework around it, that it's been owned and managed, so that when you come to develop a use case, the data's already ready to go, which is not the case in a lot of businesses.
Well, I also think a lot of businesses will move in this direction as well. But could you expand on the challenges that you've encountered moving in this direction with data?
When businesses are going on this journey, you've got to kind of look at your business from the start, because as with any of the books out there, if you try to follow the textbook word for word, it's very, very difficult to implement, because you need to look at what the theory talks about, your organization, but you also need to know your kind of red lines of, like, these are our fundamentals of when we're delivering this to the business and talking about to the business. These are the red lines that we can't cross because it fundamentally changes what we're trying to do. But these are the things that we can kind of negotiate and talk about. And it is a big process of negotiation, because you'll start off with kind of a manifesto list, and you'll negotiate over time how exactly to do it. But I think one of the key parts is the type of business are you in? Are you in kind of a business where you can do a top-down mandation, so the CEO can stand up on the front of a platform and say, this is the way we're doing things, and no one can say anything about it? That's obviously an easier situation to be in, because that mandation really helps. Or are you at the other end of the scale, where you've got lots and lots of complex departments, different businesses within a big business, where you have to go on social behavior change? And obviously that is kind of a difficult end of the continuum. But what you really need is, if you're going on that kind of, because that's where we are, kind of the more social behavior change, where we kind of leaning on people to kind of come on this journey with us. And there's some really key things that you can have in there. So one of those is board backing. So who are the key people in your business who will back this decision? So it might be department heads, things like that. Another one is kind of investment for funding. So within the kind of concept of these data products, if people are using these data products, if there's funding within the team, then the kind of domains that you're dealing with can actually go out and procure tools, use this funding that you've got. So, and that really helps if you've got existing data sources, because you've got existing data sources that the teams can kind of go at, which maybe haven't gone through what we've just talked about, kind of governance and legal procedures, although it's legally usable, but yeah, it's not gone through that procedure. So yeah, how can you then get people to back the kind of the newer data sources that might on the surface appear a little bit more harder to use because they've got governance and legal around it, and you have to go through DPIAs and things like that, like technical documents to say why you want to use this data, what you're going to use it for, and things like that. So I think, yeah, you've got to be willing to adapt and change. You've got to get buy-in from kind of heads of department, directors, know when to kind of escalate things. And I also think that if the business that you're in has already been on the product journey, you're preaching to the converted. As we know, lots of different businesses are on a different kind of product journey. But if you're dealing with product people as part of your everyday life, and you're talking about data products, and you're talking about the things we just talked about, scalability, uniqueness, usability, easy to use, all those kind of things, they already get it. It's just kind of the technical parts underneath. And I think that is a really important point around, you could go very technical, but the business generally, most people you're dealing with aren't technical. So you need to, I almost term it the iceberg. You've got the top of the iceberg that people really care about, and that's your data product. So how can you put that data product somewhere where anybody can go into something? So we have data catalogs, which you'll hear about. You can go into something and read about it. The analogy I use for that is something like Just Eat, where you don't need to know how to make a pizza. You can go onto it, search for pizza. It'll give you a list of the ingredients that's in that pizza, and you can order it and use it. And that's where we're really trying to get to with data, that you really don't have to understand how data works necessarily. You've got technical people for that. But as a high-level product manager or a senior person, you know what data sources, you know where to go to, and then you know how to use them.
My absolute favorite product analytics tool is Amplitude. And a year ago, I had an interesting conversation with their CEO, Spencer Skates, about the future of product management. The big takeaway I took from there was that there's a big movement towards understanding the business. Does this align with what you're seeing and what you've been saying?
Yeah, for sure. I think even if you go to that extent, like the day in the life of a data engineer, what do they do versus a kind of front-end, back-end engineer, and how does that differ? And that is really key, because we actually use Amplitude as well for reference. We've been on a big journey over the last year to get that tool up and running. And there's some real kind of key parts to that. The data engineering part, that kind of tools like that have kind of had to deal with kind of bad data coming through. And so they've had to build the products based on, right, we know the data quality that we get through isn't going to be great, so we're going to have to build all these features on this side to make the data kind of usable in these kind of tools. And with kind of building the data product approach, it really helps with that. And I think that's a big shift from using kind of a back-end engineering team, where you might lift a data source and just shove it into a tool and hope that that tool can deal with that data, and you blame the tool if it can't, or that tool was no good, so we'll go and procure another tool. Where a data engineer, and I mean, I talked about this as well, it's almost like a chef, kind of the reverse of a chef, where you're breaking down the ingredients, and instead of shoving the whole cake in and hoping the tool can do something with the cake, you're breaking it down into the individual ingredients within that data product for that tool. And again, for a data scientist, that's kind of unbelievable, because you've got all those raw ingredients and you're deciding how to put them together, and you're deciding in that tool how to put them together. So you can build many different data sources and different ingredients together to follow that journey that you actually want to. And that's kind of a real kind of fundamental shift, I think, in the way kind of data's done, where previously I've seen a lot of cases where you pick up a data source, API, throw it in, and kind of hope for the best.
As we wrap up, I wonder, how would you attract the best data talents to your organization, and what challenges would you maybe encounter doing that as a data leader?
Yeah, I think I talked about a little bit in the podcast. So we kind of went with kind of our data product strategy leads have to have have a product background and ideally a data background as well. So that was kind of, they're the core kind of one of the core components to kind of lead the whole theory and philosophy kind of framework to the teams. I think then you've got data engineers. So we went on a drive to actually get data engineers, not just kind of back-end engineers that have specifically worked with data, transformed data, normalized data, worked with kind of data scientists and things like that. I think the other thing that we did is to look outside the industry. So when I look at a lot of job specs these days, it can be so niche around, if you've not done this specific thing for this specific industry, then don't even apply. And I think there's a huge benefit to people coming from outside your industry into a new industry, constantly asking why. They've got the scientific fundamentals of, these are the processes that we go on, so whether it's product process or data engineering process. To me, the industry doesn't matter too much. You learn the industry quite quickly. And the benefit is when you get someone in, they're constantly asking why. Why do you do it this way? Why do you do that? Oh, because that's the way we do it in automotive. That's the way we do it in streaming, in television. But then once you go a few whys later, no one really knows anymore. And you can change whole different ways of doing things for the better by kind of that approach. We also brought in kind of delivery leads. So we followed a lot of the kind of processes of kind of what you'd have in a product team, to ensure you've kind of got that core fundamental team that you'd have in a product world, but now in a data world. And really looked for those kind of businesses that have been on that big product journey, and bringing them into the data world ensures that a lot of the theories. I think one of the interesting things that we saw is, because everyone does product a little bit differently, a lot of the kind of vocabulary that when people landed, it's, oh, we do a particular word, and then that word meant different things in different businesses. So trying to come up with that common vocabulary pretty quickly was kind of really important.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed talking to Darren. Don't forget to follow Darren on LinkedIn to stay updated with the latest in data product innovation. And if you enjoyed this episode, you'll love the episode I recorded with Bhavik Patel. It's a career changer, offering profound insights to give you the edge, especially when it comes to product and data getting closer together. So a special thanks to Amplitude for their invaluable partnership in producing this series. They really are the best product analytics software I've ever used. And until next time, from me, Ross Webb, bye for now.